Thank you for joining us for the 2-minute drills. I'm Aram Talegian, San Gabriel Valley Newspaper Group. A very special 2-minute drills, I should say. Coming up today on the left, Fred J. Robledo, San Gabriel Valley Tribune Prep Sports Editor. And the reason why this one is special, on the right, the Inland Insider, Chino Hills Tommy Kiss, the man on the right. And your presence, Tom, means we can only be talking about one thing. Chino Hills football. It's the semifinals of the Inland Division. Unbelievable game getting ready to take place on Friday night at 7:30 at Chino Hills High School. A team that needs no introduction, really, Freddie. Corona Centennial, 12-0 at Chino Hills, 10-2. Fred, let me just give you one stat before we get into it. Corona Centennial averaging 55 points a game. Some people think they're the best team in SoCal.
We were all looking forward to maybe a Bishop Amat Mission Viejo game. That would have been the game coming up this weekend. Bishop Amat gets eliminated, but we've still got, arguably, Aram, Pac-5, Mission Viejo, and Cervantes is great, but we may have the best team in all of Southern California playing one of our own, Chino Hills, on Friday. I mean, what do you say, Tom? They're that good. You look at what they did to Modern Day, a team in the semifinals in the Pac-5. They beat them 44-13. They beat Norco 45-0. Last week against Upland, a pretty decent team, 52-23.
I heard that game was close for a little bit.
I mean, it's ridiculous. They're winning. They're scoring 55 points a game and winning by a 43-point margin. And this isn't the Montview or Mission Valley League. This is against some pretty good teams. Now,
the Big Eight.
And they have Michael Eubank, maybe the best quarterback in all of Southern California. I mean, my God, the guy looks like Michael Vick, Tom. You've seen some of his highlight tapes.
Well, we watched the highlights of him, and he is a pretty daunting person. It's going to be tough for Chino Hills to stop him. Not only him, but it's going to be tough for them to stop Barrington Collins, the running back who stands behind him. And the thing I'm going to be curious about is the defense on Chino Hills. You know, they've been talking about their defense. They're a defensive team. But, Fred, look at the averages that Chino Hills has put up there offensively. They have been doing very well their first two games. They scored 70 points against Corona. Corona Centennial scored 82 against that team. And in their second game last week against Etiwanda, they scored another 42 points. Yeah. So it's an offensive explosion all of a sudden out of Chino Hills that's been helping them propel them to this semifinal.
Tommy, that's got to be because they're using EFO, Ekpre Alomo, in a lot of different ways. There was a while there during the season where they didn't use him that much on offense. Now that the guy's committed to Oregon, they're using the guy every which way. How big of a role has that played in Chino Hills? All of a sudden being able to score like a team on fire.
Well, we've talked to him a couple times, and what he says is they've thrown in the Wildcat offense, which is a different wrinkle for Chino Hills. They've never run that before, but with a guy like Ifo in the back there, with him running it, and now, he's got another option too, Nate Harris.
Yeah.
Everybody's, talking about Ifo and him going to Oregon, but Nate Harris, he ran for 215 yards last week.
Yeah.
So you've got that 1-2 punch in the backfield, and when they go to the Wildcat formation, that throws in that extra blocker, and you've seen Ifo the last 2 to 3 years. He's a game breaker when it comes to not only kick returns, but long runs for Chino Hills. So.
Well, and if you look at Chino Hills, I like to look at it this way, Aram, in big games. They had two what you call step-up games earlier in the year, and they won them both. They beat
Tesoro.
They beat Tesoro.
Redlands East Valley.
And Redlands East Valley. Two very good. Now they lost.
Corona Santiago.
Yeah, they lost to Claremont.
And Corona Santiago.
But I'm just saying those big games where you're not sure what's going to happen, they've showed up and they've played well. I don't know if this is going to be enough against a team like Corona Centennial, but at least in those big games they've showed up. It might be one of those games, Tom, where the coach just kind of looks at it and says, you know what, we've got to play our best players. If this means guys got to go both ways, guys may have to go both ways at these games. You need your best players at each position on both sides of the ball. Now, I don't know how Chino Hills has done it the whole year, whether they have a lot of guys just playing one way. But I would have to think that Coach Bub is looking at this game and saying, you know what, if we have any chance, we've got to put our best 11 on the field at all time on offense and defense.
Well, you're right, and they do. A lot of those guys go both ways. Ifo goes both ways. Nate Harris goes both ways. You've got Steve Smith. He's been starting to play both ways. He's a defensive back who has a lot of interceptions for him. Brad Bergen on the line. Austin Johnson. I haven't seen Austin Johnson play on the line on offense, but that's also an option. The problem that you're going to have with Chino Hills for them is they had Scott Calais, one of their defensive captains, go down with an injury in the first series against Etiwanda last week. He's a valuable person on that defense, and if he can't play this week, It's like all hands on deck. Who can replace him? The question that I'm going to have for Chino Hills is a lot of the games that they played that were big step-up games, they get ahead, and then they kind of let their foot off the gas. They did it against Claremont. You remember, they were up 21-0 at halftime. Yeah. They ended up losing that game.
Almost cost them the league. Almost.
Should have.
One of the losses that they did have early on in the season against Corona Santiago, it was at Corona Santiago.
They came a week after a big win.
Yeah, that was after a big win. They lost. They had a turnover early. It got ugly early. They weren't able to get back in that game. And this game being at home for Chino Hills, I think is big for them. The question is who's going to step up?
Well,
we've set it all up, Aaron. But what are the real chances now?
Yeah, well, I mean, Chino Hills defense averaging 17, giving up only just over 17 points per game. Corona Centennial's offense, like I said, they're averaging 55 a game. I think, let me just say this before I make my prediction. I think that Chino Hills, no matter what happens on Friday night, what a great collection of players these guys turned out to be. Nate Harris played a lot of varsity games. EFO did too. Austin Johnson, Bergen. Absolutely great group of kids, and it's fantastic that a Sierra League team made it to the semifinals. I think if Chino Hills wins one quarter of this game, it's an accomplishment. After that, I just kind of see, this game getting away from them. I've got Corona Centennial pretty big here.
Well, and as good as this division is,
shock you?
when the brackets came out, I mean, when you look at all the divisions, I mean, everyone just talked about Corona Centennial winning this division on land side, and this is a good division. I mean, this is a competitive division.
And that's Fred saying that, folks.
For Chino Hills on Friday, I mean, this is the game of all games. I mean, you want to measure yourself, you're measuring yourself against the best team in all of Southern California. We'll find out exactly where Chino Hills is in a game where they know they're the underdog, they're at home, and they're going to just let everything hang out. Now, is it going to be close? Probably not. I mean, if you look at all the scores, Tom, I don't see how. If Mater Dei couldn't do it, if Norco couldn't do it, if Upland couldn't do it, if none of these teams could even be in the game with Corona Centennial, I don't know how Chino Hills is on Friday.
The only way I see them having a chance is they have to control the ball and keep Eubanks and Collins off the field. They've got to have sustained drives. They have to play perfect on defense, no turnovers. They have to avoid the big play. If they get some big plays early for Centennial, this game could be over in the first quarter. But the question is how long does that game stay close? And if you're the underdog, a lot of times what you tell yourself, the longer you stay in that game, the favorite starts asking questions. Why are these guys hanging around? How come we can't put these guys away? And it will be interesting to see if Chino Hills can start quick and sustain that momentum and play at a high level.
Oh, well, okay, guys. It sounds like you're both picking Centennial. Do you want to just come out and say it?
And the problem with these field turf services that they have at home now, you can't just water the field and make it all muddy like you did in the old days when you had a Hun game. You can make it a swamp. They're going to play in the all-weather surface. There's just, any way you look at it, Corona Centennial is going to the finals.
All right, well.
Unfortunately, in this division. Unfortunately,
come on, Tom, give them a shot. Tell us why Chino Hills has a shot.
I've told you. I said they've got to play the perfect game. They've got to keep the game close. They've got to control the ball.
Win the turnover battle. Have some sustained dives. And hey, has Corona Centennial ever got punched in the mouth? Has anybody hit that quarterback really hard? And that's the key, Tom. If they can make it a close game, even past halftime, then they start to question themselves, start to wonder. You're absolutely right. If they can, the longer they can keep this game close, the more they're going to put fear in Corona Centennial. That first quarter is absolutely important.
All right, so we just told you all how Chino Hills could stay in the game and what might amount to small victories for them, even though the final score may not go their way. Get out there, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, they don't play the games here in the office. Friday night, 7:30 at Chino Hills High School. Corona Centennial comes to town to take on the Huskies. Should be a good one. Enjoy it.